Do you have a pile of 12 by 12 patterned paper that you'd like to turn into cards, but you don't like having a pile of scraps at the end? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I have 12 by 12 paper busting template for A2 cards number 33, which means there are 32 other templates at JessCrafts.com that take piece of 12 by 12 patterned paper and turn it into some A2 size cards without making any patterned paper scraps. I actually have designed 40 of them. I haven't released them all yet. You can buy the big pack in the Etsy shop rather than download them one by one, but I will share them all on my channel over time. You can go check out some of those past ones if you need more ideas. But for today, we are going to make 6 A2 size cards with no patterned paper scraps. I am using an older piece of paper today. This is Frosty from the Fruitcake collection from Basic Grey. I loved Basic Grey paper. They are no longer in business, but if you ever see their paper at the thrift store or something, I really love it. I would recommend checking it out. And I do have a list on my blog of arts and crafts thrift stores, so if you want to check that out, I'll try to remember to leave a link in the video description. If you look at the sketch, it tells you that we're going to need some 4x4 squares. This is telling you how to cut the 12 by 12 paper, and some 2 by 1 inch rectangles. So I'll start with that 4-inch measurement, and I'm going to cut 4 inches off the top. Now, something about Basic Grey paper that I've noticed, and I don't know if it's true of like all of them, but sometimes they'll have like some distressing around the edges, and so then when you cut it up, not all your pieces will have the distressing around the edges. You can go in with some ink and distress that if you want to mimic that look, if that's something that you've noticed about their paper too. I don't think I'm going to worry about it today, but we'll see. So we're going to cut that to the 4x4 squares, and then I know that I need these 1-inch strips. So rather than taking it to 1 inch here and having a lot of paper hanging over the edge of my trimmer, which can sometimes warp it and make it hard to cut, I'd rather measure from the other side. So I have 8 inches and I can bring it to 7. I should cut this branding strip off. I usually do that as the first step. Not really sure why I didn't this time, but that makes it sometimes a little easier to remember. Basic Grey, if I remember correctly, most of them also have this on the back of their branding strips, and so I guess that would be a scrap here. You could totally just put this on the inside of the cards though. So we need that 1 inch. So I can take the 1 inch from the bottom, or over here, I'll bring it to the 7-inch mark, and then to the 6-inch. And then I'll do that all again with the second half of the paper. But I'm not gonna, don't want to show you every little step of the process. My paper trimmer can cut 2 sheets of paper at once. A lot can, but some people find it a little bit tricky to try to cut 2 sheets, so you do what works well for you. This is double-sided paper. My current plan is to let my pattern paper shine and use that snowman side as my 4x4 square that is the focal point, so that I don't need to bring in a stamp or much else because my pattern paper will do it. And that means we're going to work with really minimal supplies today. So speaking of minimal supplies, I will be teaching at an upcoming summit where we're all, it's like a virtual summit where you watch these classes and you can watch them for free for the first 24 hours. But we're all going to be using 5 supplies or less. So there are some like basic supplies that don't count as the 5 supplies, but it's going to be relatively low supply cards. So if you like this video, you might like at that summit as well. So we have this 4x4 square. In the sketch, I call for a mat around it, and I'm going to use that today. Although if you could see, you don't really need to. What I'm going to do for the little strips on the side is use the back side. And so what's going to happen with these strips is there's going to be 2 here and 2 on the other side, and you're going to kind of cover that gap in between them, so it'll look like you have these 2 long strips of paper, but you don't actually, and that's how we got this working like without any scraps. So like it may be a little faster if I just had 1 long piece across here, but this gives me this no scrap way of approaching it. And I value that enough that I'll do the little extra fiddly thing of making it look like one continuous line when it's not. So I also tell you what size to cut the mats if you do want some mats around these pieces as well. Because mine is almost a solid paper, you can see there is some pattern to it, but because it's almost solid, I'm actually not gonna worry about putting some mats behind them, just to save myself a little time. I am making 6 cards today. But I did cut the 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch mat for the 4x4 piece. And here I'm using this grid mat to line up my strips so it looks like one continuous line across. I have a large mat from scrapbook.com that also has like a little outline for an A2 size card. So that kind of helps me to center things up too, but you could totally do this with any kind of grid mat. You could measure them, and we could just eyeball it, which I've done plenty of times too. You know, guesstimate how much it is. So then I'll place this here, and now because it's 4 1/4, because I added the mat, it extends the whole width of the card. So I do want to be a little bit careful. I put it down pretty gently there, that it's really lined up well with the top and the bottom, and I don't have a sneaky little bit of white peeking out. Okay. And you can adjust this to make these closer or further away depending on your personal, like I don't really give measurements. You know, I don't say measure 1 inch down from the top or anything like that for these. It's just kind of a suggestion of how to assemble these pieces. Now, you also, if you wanted to, this whole card could be assembled this way. You would just shift it and you could have the 2 lines coming down. I usually just basically pick a direction for those. The reason that I do actually, the reason I picked it to be landscape is because that would work with directional pattern paper. These strips, if this was directional pattern paper where there's a clear top and bottom, like the snowman paper is. The snowman paper, because it's a square, I can turn it. But these 2x1s, if I had cut them out of a directional pattern paper, we can see this, right? Like if I took this and I tried to put it up and down, then they wouldn't be facing the wrong direction. So if you have a non-directional pattern paper, that allows you sometimes to switch up the sketches. But I do try to keep that in mind because I know a lot of paper does have directionality, i.e. clear top and bottom. So I try to suggest it in the easiest way. It doesn't always work. Sometimes I'll say, hey, this sketch doesn't work with directional pattern paper. So now we're ready to finish off this card. I'm going to use some sentiments from Paper Rose. These are the Paper Rose Christmas sentiment sheets. I like them because I like the look of a black background with white writing for the sentiment. And I've seen these from a couple of different companies, but this is just one example of them. And you can achieve the same look by taking some black cardstock and white embossing powder and stamping a sentiment on top. This is just for me, it's a lot easier. I don't have to worry about, you know, the non-stick and all that stuff. So I'm just going to, and then when I do cut them apart, I'll show you an example sheet. So there's like a whole bunch of them on one sheet, and I go with my paper trimmer and I cut the lines. I try to leave as much surrounding them, so like on the edges I left all this extra next to Mary, just in case, you know, I don't know how it's gonna look on the final card, but I like having them sliced up like this. Okay, so I think I'll probably do a banner edge. So I'll like cut that at a little bit of an angle, and then I'll cut it straight on this side. You could use a trimmer if you're not confident to cut the straight line. I'm okay with my line not being straight because it probably won't be, but that's fine. It's a handmade card. And here, I'm gonna put it, I don't wanna cover the face. Like, where's a good place to put it over these snowmen? I'm actually intentionally putting it here in this corner that has a little bit of distressing to bring some attention to that, but there's no distressing on the other side, so you might not wanna do something similar. And then I will continue through and finish the other 6 cards. So now I've turned one super cute 12x12 piece of pattern paper into 6 cards, with no scraps. If you like this style of card making, you will probably enjoy my class at the upcoming Stress-Free Card Making Summit happening in September 2024. So if you're watching this video when it first comes out, I'll leave you a link to that in the video description. It is an affiliate advertising link. I earn commission from that, and I will leave you a link to this template so that you can download it for free and try to make your own cards. During the summit, my class will be similar to 5 supplies, 12 by 12 paper. You will get an exclusive 12 by 12 paper busting template as part of the class as well, and that's all with the free ticket. So I hope you will join us at the summit and that you've enjoyed this idea for making cards with 12 by 12 paper. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.